Boston winters always seemed to creep into my bones, no matter how many years I had lived there. That night was no different. It was a Friday, late, and the city felt weary with the week's wait. I had stayed behind at the office far longer than I meant to, fussing over slides my manager probably wouldn't even look at, and by the time I rushed out, the streets around Back Bay were already dim, lamplight spilling onto slick sidewalks. I caught the 39 bus by sheer luck. It was crowded, students with backpacks, tired workers slumped against windows, a woman juggling grocery bags. I remember fumbling in my purse, digging for my transit card with one gloved hand while holding my phone in the other, its screen still glowing with unread messages, work chats, junk notifications, the usual chaos. I squeezed into a seat, clutching the phone in my lap, the glow painting my fingers pale. The ride was uneventful, just the hum of tired commuters and the occasional squeal of brakes. I must have been more drained than I realized, because my thoughts blurred and I stared out the window, letting the city roll by in streaks of light and shadow. My stop came. I stood, shuffled off, and let the cold air wake me as the bus hissed away. It wasn't until I climbed the 3 flights of stairs to my apartment, shut the door, and began peeling off my coat that the realization hit me like a blade to the gut. My phone wasn't in my purse, not on the counter where I always tossed it, not in the coat pocket I checked twice, 3 times. Panic surged hot and immediate. I emptied the purse entirely, scattering pens, receipts, my wallet, keys, but no phone. I replayed the last half hour in my head, frantic. The bus. I'd been holding it on the bus. Had I dropped it when I stood up, left it on the seat? My pulse hammered as I thought of the photos, the passwords, the endless personal data inside. I told myself people lose phones all the time. Most turn up in lost and found. But something inside me whispered, this wasn't going to be that simple. I borrowed my laptop and opened Find My iPhone. The screen blinked, loading, before showing me the tiny green dot. Relief flickered, my phone was still on, but then my stomach dropped. It wasn't moving with the bus route. It wasn't anywhere near the depot. The dot pulsed from a random side street in Roxbury, far from where I had gotten off. Someone had taken it. I tried calling my number from Skype. It rang, then stopped. No voicemail, no sound, just silence. I tried again, same thing. My chest tightened. Whoever had it didn't want to talk. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside felt amplified. The slam of a car door, a dog barking, footsteps echoing in the hallway. My apartment, usually my refuge, felt fragile. My laptop screen glowed on the desk, the green dot still sitting in that same neighborhood. At some point I shut it, telling myself the police would help in the morning, but morning brought worse. When I checked my laptop again, the green dot had moved, not just moved, traveled, across streets, closer toward downtown, closer to me. By the time I showered and made coffee with trembling hands, the dot sat only 2 blocks from my apartment. I called the police. The dispatcher was calm but unconcerned. Phones get stolen every day, ma'am. File a report online. If you see suspicious activity on your accounts, call back. I tried to insist, told her the phone was close, that I could see it moving in real time. She only repeated, don't approach, file a report. I hung up, furious and terrified, staring at the map. The dot pulsed again, 1 block away, and then my buzzer rang. The sound jolted me so hard, I spilled coffee across the counter. I froze, staring at the door. No one ever buzzed me without texting first. Slowly I crept to the intercom and pressed the button. No one spoke, just static. My heart thundered. I didn't answer. After a long moment, the buzzing stopped. When I checked the tracker again, the dot had vanished, offline. I tried to convince myself it was coincidence. Maybe a delivery guy, maybe the app glitching. But unease burrowed into me like a parasite. I carried that dread into work, into every email and meeting, until I could barely think straight. That night, as I returned home, the true nightmare began. I had just turned off the lights when my laptop pinged. A new email. I padded barefoot to the desk, already dreading what I'd see. The subject line made my skin crawl. Nice place you have. The email had no sender name, just my own stolen phone number as the source. The body contained a single photo, the view of my apartment building from across the street, window lights glowing. My window. I staggered back, bile rising. My phone wasn't just stolen. Whoever had it was watching me. I called the police again, voice shaking. They promised to send a car by, but no one came that night. I sat in the dark, clutching a kitchen knife, every sound magnified. When sleep finally dragged me under, it was shallow, broken by dreams of being followed. The torment didn't stop. Over the next days, new emails arrived. Photos of me on the street, heading to the office. One of me inside the grocery store checkout line, unaware. Each one arrived from my own number. Always short captions. You walk fast. Blue coat today. Cute smile at the cashier. It was like being skinned alive. Every shred of privacy stripped. My apartment no longer felt safe. I kept curtains drawn. Barely slept. Barely ate. The worst came 4 nights later. Another email. This one not a photo, but a video file. My hands shook as I clicked play. The grainy footage showed me, asleep in my bed, blankets tangled around me. The angle was impossible, taken from inside my own room. I screamed, dropping the laptop. My mind fractured with panic. Someone had been here. Someone had stood in my room and filmed me. I fled to my neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, banging until she opened the door. I told her everything, voice splintering with terror. She let me stay the night, her teenage son sitting up in the living room with a baseball bat while I lay awake on their couch, heart racing. The next morning, I returned with the police. They searched my apartment. No forced entry, no hidden cameras, no signs of anything. One officer looked at me with tired skepticism. "Ma'am, maybe it's a prank, maybe a friend messing with you." I wanted to scream, but then just as they prepared to leave, Mrs. Garcia's son shouted. He had found something under the radiator, a tiny black cube, no bigger than a keychain, a camera. The officer's demeanor changed instantly. They bagged it, took statements, promised to investigate. It took another agonizing week before the pieces finally fell into place. The culprit wasn't a faceless stranger. It was a man who rode the same bus route every evening, someone I had vaguely noticed in passing, a loner, mid-40s, unkempt beard. He had seen me drop my phone, pocketed it, and used it as a gateway into my life. He had tracked me through apps, stolen my data, slipped into my apartment using a copy of my building's generic lock key. The emails, the photos, the video, they were all his twisted game. The police arrested him outside a convenience store. He still had my phone, my data, everything. I learned later he had a record of harassment, complaints swept under bureaucratic rugs. He hadn't gone this far before. When they told me he was in custody, the relief was so sharp it nearly broke me. I sat in my apartment, lights blazing, sobbing into my hands until exhaustion swallowed me whole. The phone was returned eventually, though I couldn't bring myself to touch it. I bought a new one. Still, nights were hard. Every shadow in the hallway, every buzz of the intercom sent a spike of panic through me. But the worst was the silence, the memory of being watched without knowing, the knowledge that for days I was a marionette on invisible strings, my every move catalogued by someone who should have been a stranger, but had forced his way into the intimate rhythm of my life. Boston streets look different now. I don't take the late bus anymore. I keep my phone chained to me, never out of sight. And though they tell me he's behind bars, I sometimes wake at night certain that the intercom will buzz again, and that voice will finally speak. My name is Sarah Evans, and I can still remember the day I thought my luck had finally turned. I was 42, a single mom raising my daughter Emily on my own in Houston. Bills piled up faster than I could pay them, and the constant fear of losing our apartment kept me awake most nights. Then I saw a job posting online that seemed too good to be true. Product customer service representative, competitive salary, full benefits, long-term stability. The company was called Genetrix Solutions, and the listing said they were expanding their operations in Houston. When I walked into their glass-paneled office building for the interview, everything looked professional, almost intimidating in its sleek perfection. Everyone in suits, everything spotless and polished. The receptionist handed me a thick stack of papers to sign before the interview even started, an NDA and a 2-year continuation agreement that meant if I left early, I'd owe them nearly $50,000 in damages. At that moment, I hesitated, but I reminded myself of Emily's braces, the overdue rent, the grocery bills I kept juggling, The salary they offered was almost double what I made at my last job. I signed. The first week was almost boring. Training sessions in quiet conference rooms, PowerPoint slides, phrases like clients, distribution channels, and premium product lines. Nothing unusual. My job was to field customer inquiries and facilitate orders. But there was something odd. No one ever used specifics about the product. It was always just called the merchandise or the units. I brushed it off. But on my second week, I noticed something that chilled me. One of the order sheets accidentally printed with the wrong header. It listed kidneys, corneas, hearts. At first I thought it had to be some medical supplier. Maybe they worked with hospitals or research facilities. But the way the sheet categorized them, not by medical quality, but by price tiers and shipping routes, made my stomach twist. I went home that night and tried to convince myself I was imagining things. Maybe it was all legal, just poorly worded. But when I mentioned the merchandise casually to a senior rep, she gave me a look that made my skin crawl. Cold, sharp, and full of warning. By the end of that week I knew. They were trading in human organs, not donations, not research, but something darker, illegal, and massive in scale. The first call I took that confirmed it nearly broke me. A man with a thick accent asked, "Do you have any pediatric livers available? The buyer is willing to pay the premium for expedited transport." My mouth went dry. My hand trembled as I placed him on hold and transferred the call, but my ears rang with the words long after I hung up. I couldn't quit. The contract I had signed chained me there. $50,000 if I broke it, more than I could ever pay in my life. I called a lawyer quietly, anonymously, to ask if contracts like that could be enforced. He told me yes, unless the company itself was proven to be criminal, but pursuing that would mean a long fight and me potentially being complicit. That night, I barely slept. I looked at Emily in her bed, hugging her stuffed bear, and all I could think about was how unsafe our world had suddenly become. I had walked straight into hell and dragged her along without knowing it. Over the next weeks, the nightmare deepened. The managers began involving me more directly. "Sarah, confirm the shipment for tomorrow," one of them said, handing me a folder. Inside were coded documents, but I understood enough to see body parts listed by initials, sizes, destinations. I wanted to scream, but instead, I nodded, my throat tight, and did as they said. Every day I went to work, I felt like a prisoner. At home, I was constantly paranoid. Was my phone tapped? Was I being followed? Emily noticed I was different. She asked me why I was so quiet, why I jumped at every knock on the door. I couldn't tell her. Then came the threats. It started with small comments at work. "Once you're in, your family here. No one leaves." Another rep smirked and added, "Some who try regret it." One night, after I thought Emily was asleep, I opened my laptop to search how to report illegal organ trade. The next morning, when I logged into my work computer, there was a new wallpaper, a picture of Emily, taken from her school's Facebook page. A message in the corner read, "Focus on your work. Don't make mistakes." My knees buckled under me. They were watching us. I felt like I was suffocating every second of every day. At work, I played the obedient employee. At home, I kept all windows locked, triple-checked the door, and barely let Emily out of my sight. My body was there, but my mind was trapped in a constant loop of fear. The breaking point came 3 months in. A customer call came through to me directly. He was angry about a delayed shipment and shouted, "Do you people know how much I'm paying for these kidneys?" That was it. I knew if I stayed one more day, I'd lose my mind, or worse, lose Emily. I couldn't just walk away. I had to plan. Quietly, carefully. I started documenting everything. Copies of emails, screenshots of internal systems, notes from calls. I hid a flash drive inside the lining of my purse. Each day I prayed they wouldn't search me. Finally, one Friday evening, I went to the FBI office in Austin. My hands shook as I pushed the flash drive across the desk and whispered everything. The agent's face turned stone serious as he listened. "You did the right thing," he told me, though I could barely breathe. For weeks after that, I lived in pure terror. I still had to go to work, pretending everything was normal, while knowing federal investigators were quietly building a case. Every glance from my managers felt sharper, every interaction heavier. I worried they already suspected me. I worried about Emily constantly. If something happened to her, it would be because of me. Then one Monday morning, it all exploded. I arrived at the office and saw black SUVs parked outside, men in suits and jackets marked FBI. Within minutes, The entire floor was swarming with agents. My manager tried to run but was tackled near the elevators. Employees were being questioned, computers seized. I sat frozen at my desk, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd faint. When an agent came to me, I whispered, "My daughter, please make sure she's safe." He nodded, calm, and assured me she was already under protection. Tears streamed down my face for the first time in months. That night, after hours of questioning and giving my full statement, I finally returned home to Emily. She clung to me so tight, I thought my ribs would break. I told her only that the scary job was over, and we were safe now. The investigation was all over the news for weeks. One of the largest illegal organ trafficking networks uncovered in the country, hundreds of arrests worldwide, my NDA and continuation contract completely void, shredded by the weight of their crimes. Even now, months later, the fear lingers. I still jump when the phone rings, still glance over my shoulder when walking home. The trauma doesn't vanish overnight, but I survived. Emily is safe, and I've learned that no paycheck is worth selling your soul or gambling with your family's life. I had signed a contract with the devil, but in the end, I found a way to tear it up, and I will never ever ignore my instincts again. I never imagined something as small as a click could tear my family's peace apart. My name is Robert Stewart, though everyone calls me Rob, and until last year we lived a quiet, simple life in Austin. I had a steady job in IT support. My wife Claire taught middle school English, and our teenage son Alex was navigating those restless years of curiosity and rebellion. We weren't rich, but we had stability, routine, and comfort, which I always thought was enough. That illusion shattered the night Alex stumbled into a trap on the internet. It started innocently, or so he thought. One evening after dinner, Alex was sitting at the kitchen counter scrolling through his phone while Claire graded papers and I washed the dishes. He suddenly asked me, "Dad, is it true that some websites can help you double your money, like investments?" I barely looked up from the sink. "If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, son. Stay away from those." He mumbled something like, "Yeah, okay," and I didn't think much of it. Teenagers get curious. I figured he'd forget about it and move on, but Alex didn't. Later that night, while we thought he was gaming, he signed up on a website that promised quick returns on small investments. They only asked for a modest amount of money at first, so he linked his prepaid debit card, the one we'd given him to learn responsibility. He thought he'd surprise us with extra cash. Instead, he opened the door to hell. The first sign came the next afternoon when Alex looked pale and nervous. "Dad," he said, holding up his phone, "something's wrong." He showed me an email confirming that his account was approved, followed by a message demanding more money if he wanted to see returns. Attached were screenshots of his profile, his phone number, even our home address. I felt my stomach twist. Somehow he had given them enough for them to dig into us. I told him not to panic, that scammers bluff all the time. But then the phone calls started. At first it was one or two, anonymous numbers from overseas, then dozens. By evening, Claire's phone, Alex's phone, and even our landline were lighting up non-stop. A mechanical voice kept repeating, "Pay us, or we will destroy your life. We have your information. Everyone will know." Another call snarled in broken English, "You give us 5,000 now, or your boy will suffer." Claire clutched her phone with trembling hands, her face drained of color. Alex looked like he'd seen a ghost. He was only 16, and already he carried guilt in his eyes as if he had doomed us. I tried to reassure them, but inside, dread was tightening its grip. The harassment escalated quickly. By the next morning, Alex's number was posted on forums. His phone buzzed with vulgar messages, images too vile for a teenager to see. Some messages pretended to be from classmates, others from unknown adults demanding pictures, threatening violence if he didn't comply. Claire broke down in tears when someone emailed her from an address called truthaboutyourfamily@protonmail.com, with doctored photos of Alex's face pasted onto disturbing images. They wrote, "Pay, or these go public." It didn't stop there. They spoofed numbers so it looked like calls were coming from neighbors, our bank, even my office. Every time I answered, it was the same cycle of threats, insults, and demands. "We own you now. We will humiliate you. Austin will laugh at you." We didn't sleep that night. Every ping, Every vibration of a phone felt like a gunshot. Alex curled on the couch, shaking, whispering that he wished he could disappear. Claire held him, rocking back and forth, whispering reassurances that sounded hollow in the storm of digital torture. I sat in the dark, staring at my laptop, scouring forums, trying to find a way to stop it, all the while feeling powerless. By day 3, our lives were unrecognizable. Claire couldn't concentrate at work, so she called in sick. Alex refused to touch his phone. We unplugged the landline, but that didn't stop the emails. One particularly cruel message arrived at 2 a.m. "We have your Wi-Fi. We see you now." It included a photo of our house taken from Google Street View. Claire screamed when she saw it. We shut every curtain, locked every door twice, and sat in silence, as if that would keep them out. But how do you lock a door against something that never steps inside? That was the worst part. They never needed to come near us. The fear came from knowing they could reach into our private world from anywhere. They crawled under our skin, poisoned our home, and turned every device into a weapon. I tried reporting it. The first officer at the Austin Police Department dismissed it with a sigh. "These scams happen all the time, sir. Just block the numbers and be cautious." But blocking didn't matter when new numbers appeared every 10 minutes. Filing a report felt like tossing a pebble into the ocean. Meanwhile, the scammers escalated. They demanded $10,000 now, transferred in Bitcoin. They sent us instructions with a QR code. "You have 48 hours, they wrote, "or your son will be famous for the wrong reasons." They attached another fake photo of Alex, and Claire nearly vomited. Alex sobbed, begging me not to let them ruin him. I felt rage and helplessness boiling inside me. I wanted to protect my family, to smash the faceless monsters tormenting us, but they were ghosts behind screens. I couldn't punch them, couldn't drag them into the daylight. All I could do was fight with patience and persistence. I reached out to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. I spent hours writing down every number, every email, every message. I stayed awake at night, screenshotting, saving, cataloging the evidence. Claire thought I was breaking apart, but the truth was, I clung to that task because it was the only thing I could control. Days blurred together. Our house became a bunker of fear. Alex refused to see friends. Claire stopped answering her phone entirely. Even simple things like walking to the corner store felt unsafe. Every stranger's glance seemed suspicious. Every car parked outside felt like a threat. The mental torture was unrelenting. Then about a week in, I received a call. Not from a scammer, but from a detective in Austin's cybercrime unit. He had received my detailed complaint and wanted to meet. For the first time, I felt a spark of hope. We met downtown, in a bland office filled with glowing screens. Detective Morales listened carefully, scrolling through the mountain of evidence I had collected. "You did good," he told me. "Most people panic and delete. You gave us a trail." He explained that the scammers were part of a syndicate operating overseas, likely using bot networks and leaked databases to terrorize families into paying. We weren't their first victims, and sadly, we wouldn't be their last. The waiting that followed was agonizing. We still received threats, but now I forwarded everything directly to Morales. He assured me they were tracing accounts, following digital breadcrumbs. Claire doubted anything would change. Alex barely spoke. Our home remained suffocating with fear. Then came the breakthrough. Morales called one morning, his tone sharper, energized. "We got them, or at least part of them. A joint operation overseas just took down a server hub tied to your case. Multiple arrests. Their data has been seized." He couldn't promise every individual tormenting us was behind bars, but their infrastructure had been dismantled. For us, it meant the harassment stopped almost overnight. No more calls, no more emails, no more threats. The silence that followed was deafening. It took weeks before Claire unclenched, before Alex smiled again, before I stopped waking at every buzz of my phone. We were scarred, but we were free. Looking back, I realized something chilling. The scammers never once set foot in Austin. They didn't need to. They invaded our lives from a world away and nearly broke us without crossing our threshold. That is the power of their cruelty. Faceless, relentless, merciless. To this day, Alex won't talk much about that week. He blames himself, though we remind him daily that the fault lies with the predators. Claire keeps her phone on silent most of the time. And me, I still jump when an unknown number flashes on my screen. The fear doesn't vanish, it lingers, like a shadow. But we survived. And I tell this story because people need to understand, these threats are real, they are everywhere, and they thrive in silence. If you ever fall victim, don't hide, speak up, report, push until someone listens, because if not, they win. We came dangerously close to letting them win, and that more than anything is what keeps me awake some nights, staring into the dark, grateful for the peace we have, but never fully trusting it again.